Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to talk about something new, and you'll understand that in a second, with Scott McGregor and Jamie Diglio. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Ann.
All right, Scott. So give me your background. I'm going to ask you too, Jamie. What's your background? Business guy, marketing,
sales leader for 20 plus years. Absolutely dissatisfied with the status quo of recruiting, growing a very large national sales team for a startup that grew to hundreds of employees. Knew there needed to be something done.
So you came up with something new.
A fresh approach.
Yeah, and the website is trysomethingnew.com.
Trysomethingnew.now.com.
Not later, but
exactly.
now. Okay.
Exactly.
Jamie, what's your background?
So my background is many, many years in sales leadership at big companies. And for me, I really was dissatisfied with the lack of focus on people strategy at companies. We talk a lot about technology and process, but the people aspect had been sort of missing. And so that was my mission with leaving corporate, to help companies with how they have a strategy around their people.
So our company, you're dealing with startups, correct? A lot of startups around the country.
Mostly hyper-growth startups.
All right, hyper-growth meaning
of,
what?
Series A just got $20 million parked in their bank account, and they need to spend it. They're growing very fast, typically VC-backed, and they're all over the world. So we have about 50 international clients where we help them set up their U.S. operations.
So trysomethingnew.now.com. What do I see on there? I see job postings, I see give back, I see all these kinds of things. So what is the mission?
The mission of the business when I started 4.5 years ago was to try to figure out how to give back. So that's really our why. That's why we get out of bed every day. That's why we do things with the enthusiasm that we do. So I wanted to figure out a unique way to do that. I knew that through our business, the more successful we were, the more we would be able to help others. So we do that through our social mission, which we call Something Good. And that's everything from books that we publish, all the proceeds go to charity, to a lot of other things that we do to try to make the world a better place.
So Jamie, you were brought on board as the president.
Yes.
How are you going to shape something new? How's it going to be different from 4.5 years ago when Scott founded it?
Well, I think that Scott did an amazing job for the first 4 years, focusing really on hiring strategic talent for companies. But what we realized is that just hiring someone in, it doesn't, that's where, that's when it really starts, right? Because it's all about not just hiring the person, but how are they onboarded? How do you create an environment where not only people want to join a company, but they want to stay, and are they inspired in that company? So me coming in and joining Scott, it was sort of, as I said, like he had the hiring piece and I come with the inspiring piece. So our mission really is to help companies with that full life cycle of employee strategy.
Who are they looking for? Who are these startup companies looking for? Is it all millennials because they know they're going to go to a workspace and get beer on Fridays and get to wear jeans and can, take vacations when they want? I mean, what is happening with business these days?
We're typically placing C-level executives, so chief revenue officers, chief marketing officers, but we also place young millennials that are fresh out of school. So typically in the sales and marketing disciplines, kind of anything within that realm, but definitely with an eye on the C-suite.
How has talent changed over the 20 years that you know? Everything's shifted. It seems like everything after 2009 shifted. What are companies looking for, and what are employees looking for? You take on the companies, you take on the employees.
I think companies are trying to figure out, how do we retain great talent? How do we find it? How do we get them up to speed quickly? Because time is of the essence. And then how do we keep them long term? So, there's a real struggle to keep really good people. So,
and why is that?
I think it's people's desire to try different things in their career and not be kind of bound by the way that people thought in the past, which was...
You don't stay for the gold watch.
Yeah, you're not staying for the gold watch anymore. And I think people value experiences. And I think today, if you don't get those from your current employer, you're going to move on. We're in the hottest candidate market that we've been in 49 years. So no one that we work with has really lived through this war for talent before to this extent. So if you don't do the things that you need to do to retain great talent, you're going to lose the talent.
Employees, what are they looking for?
Employees want to work in a organization where they believe in what the company stands for, so the company's mission, and they're looking for leaders that invest in them, that want to help develop their skills. And I think one of the biggest challenges has been with the automation of so much, is that a lot of the coaching and a lot of the on-demand, talent development, it's not engaging, right? And so for us, really, it's all about that engagement. And how are you working to communicate and coordinate with your employees? How are you growing, helping them with their growth of their own personal development, helping them figure out what they want to do next. So instead of, like you said, that sort of holding people into that same role for a long time, we really actually want them to have to grow into new roles and inspire to do new things. And so that's a different type of leadership mentality that we're really trying to educate the leaders we work with on.
It's really interesting because companies will say, well, I'm going to invest a lot in you. And they turn around and they're gone. So, it's loyalty from the companies and loyalty from the employees seems to be shifting.
I think they're investing sometimes in the wrong things, or they think they're investing in employees, so we call it cultural Febreze. So for instance, a lot
Interesting. You did the laundry kind of situation in there. What does that mean?
What it means is that a lot of companies are not really getting to the root of what creates a great culture. So they'll throw a foosball table or a ping pong table or a kegerator into their environment, and they'll call that a good culture. That's not a good culture.
What's a good culture?
A good culture starts at the top. It starts about really caring about your employees and really trying to figure out, what does this person really want to accomplish? And that may not mean that they're going to stay with your company long term, but helping support them in their journey. I think that's what people want. They want to be trained. They want to be developed much more than they want free food, or a ping pong table.
How has the employee changed? You say you're looking for which level executives to try to place them?
Typically heads of sales,
Okay.
heads of marketing.
All right. And has that changed for what they're looking for from the employee? I mean, it just seems that people are shifting around all the time. If you look at somebody's resume these days, it's here for 2 years, here for 2 years, here for maybe a year. I mean, they are bouncing and they are moving.
I mean, it's funny, I was talking about this the other day, I correlate the same way to sort of relationships. People, it's hard, right? Like in the beginning, it's like you go and jump into a new company and it seems really exciting. But then if there isn't anything after that, there isn't any growth and development beyond that, it's kind of the same way in a relationship. We look at relationships today and people sort of like, oh, there's something better out there, right? And then they opt to move into a different relationship. Same thing with jobs. So they're sort of just jumping around looking for someone to really to help inspire them. And it's difficult because I feel like a lot of leaders are they're so heads down and busy in the minutia of the day-to-day, but they don't pick their head up and look at the people they have around them and the power that they have. We talk about when the hiring piece, it's like when you bring in a new person into a team, that's a new team. Right? And there needs to be a whole nother level of thinking about that.
Are they willing to spend the money to do that?
It depends. There's always a trigger event. So when it comes to sort of a retention challenge, when they start to see how much, because you spend so much to hire and onboard this talent, and then when they leave, so companies are starting to pay attention when they start to see not only with the retention the retention issue becomes an issue, because then they start to correlate how much that costs.
Sure.
Yeah. So then they start to pay attention to it.
What companies are you working with? And if the bigger companies are having to change how they hired from 10 years ago, so who are you working with? Who's your optimum person that's coming to you for help?
We're typically working with a CEO. So that CEO is really going to shape their people strategy. So we're helping them. Oftentimes we talk about teaching people how to fish versus just giving them a fish. So they may say, in order to get to the next level, we need a new chief revenue officer. But if they don't have the fundamental foundational pieces in place, then they're really not going to be successful even if they get that piece. So we're very big on teaching people how to fish. We understand they need the people and we'll find them the people, but it's also helping them to really understand what their talent acquisition strategy is, what their onboarding is going to look like, and then what their retention is going to be.
Do they get what you're trying to do, or are you having to educate them?
Well, so the thing is that a lot of CEOs do, and what you're finding, and again, we can probably both speak to this because we've come from bigger organizations, but I think the biggest, like the compelling value proposition for some of the smaller startups is their culture and the way that they take care of their people. So what you're seeing is that really top talent from big companies are now opting out of those companies and going into startups because they want that. They're so thirsty for leadership and empowerment and development to be able to really grow in their career.
So without naming companies, there are many big companies that hire a bunch of tech guys out of college, and you're right, they give them the kegs and the ping pong tables and keep them on the campus, as it were. But the burnout rate's got to be big, right? I mean, with massive amounts of that. So you're right, they learn from what they've seen. They're jumping out and starting their own culture.
Right. Right. See it all the time.
The Standing O, you wrote this book. Why?
I got a lot of help.
You got a lot of help. So who wants this book?
Anyone who wants to read a chapter every week. So there's 52 contributing authors. They're prominent CEOs, they're Olympians, they're pro athletes, amazing group of people.
To tell you how to do what?
They all share gratitude for a life lesson learned, and they were very generous to do that. So everybody took a little bit of a different spin. For some people, it was a standing ovation to their parents. For some, it was a coach. For some, it was a teacher. For some, a good friend of mine, Mark Brown, who played for the Jets, he wrote his, it was called Dear Football. He grew up in Paterson, New Jersey, and really football got him the scholarship to Auburn, which then eventually led him to the NFL, but really saved his life and changed the trajectory of his life. So everyone, took a little bit of a different spin on it, but it's all about giving gratitude for the things that we learned, because we all got there through other people.
It takes a village, right? I guess.
It does.
Yeah.
And so you're 4 years in. What do you want to be when this company grows up? I mean, and I know you've got competition, a ton of competition. So how are you different? You have a give back piece, but what is it about something new that is something new?
There's two different components, and I'll throw it over to Jamie in a second. The first is the recruiting or the talent acquisition piece, where our process is very different. So we have a process called Accurate Search Accelerated Placement, or ASAP for short. And that's a process that really defines what perfect looks like. And then we use a data-driven approach, a lot like the movie Moneyball, which really transformed baseball. We use that on the talent side for companies to really evaluate the things that are most important. So sometimes people will overvalue or undervalue certain traits because they believe that their gut feel is going to allow them to evaluate somebody. And that's just a really dangerous way to go about hiring somebody.
And then he kicks it to you.
He kicks it to me, yes. Well, where most companies do stop at the hiring piece, so they're just trying to place people into organizations. For us, like we know everything. It's all about good people knowing good people, and our customers, our clients, are all through referral. And so for us, I do believe, Scott and I both believe this, but it's like you repeat what you don't repair. So for us, a big part of that is not just the hiring piece, right? But how are we helping them to make sure that that hire stays, right? We don't keep having to put in a new chief revenue officer every year and a half. So the life cycle of what we call Something New Labs is really our way to help clients in all stages. So we have our advisory service, and clients can come to us for pretty much anything around talent acquisition, onboarding, and retention. and or diversity, right? So like one of the things that a lot of our clients struggle with is hiring diverse candidates. So we will help them and give them advice on how to attract, females into their organization.
Yay.
Yay. But really we're helping them throughout all stages. So I sort of is like a phone friend, right? To be able to support them when anything that comes up all around their talent strategy.
When you go into a company and troubleshoot it, how long is it from the time you go in to the time you come out? Or do you keep them?
We keep working with them,
okay.
Because their challenges change, and especially in hyper-growth startups, your challenges that you have when you have 20 people are very different from the challenges you have when you have 120, mm-hmm. and then 320, and 520, mm-hmm. and 1,000. So those challenges change, so we work with those clients on an as-needed basis, as well as set hours that we work with them on their talent strategy.
Are you working with some Connecticut companies right now?
We are.
And what is the attraction to Connecticut, and are you finding any kind of pushback from employees going, oh, I hear Connecticut is this or that? I happen to love Connecticut. I think it's an awesome state. We've got to get rid of the negativity, but do you hear that from people trying to come here?
We do. Unfortunately, we do. We, as I said, we work with companies all over the world. Our client base is probably the thinnest in Connecticut, which is a little bit disappointing in that Jamie and I are both Connecticut residents, and we have other employees that live in Connecticut.
What
do we do about that? How do you bring the folks here?
Well, I think it's also this sort of evolution of companies feeling like they can have employees that are remote. I mean, I personally, having a career in sales, being in Connecticut was great because I worked from Boston down to New Jersey, New York, so I was in a great central location, and I have a virtual team. So to me, it's a great place to be. And so I think the more and more we work with companies, I mean, that's a huge thing from hiring standpoint as well, having the flexibility of how you don't have to just see your people all the time to know they're working, right? That's another
it's
sort
a new
of
world.
Right, that's like it's something else, that people that have been in the workforce for a while, like sort of getting their head around. But looking at that as a positive, right? Like that you can have remote workers, you can have Connecticut's a central location. It's a beautiful state. I mean, I'm from Boston. I live here now.
We got you. I love that. There's too many people going to Boston.
I'm from Boston. I moved to New York, and then I'm in Connecticut. So there you go.
Okay, you can't leave now.
No, I can't.
Okay.
So, is this everything you thought it would be? It's hard to build a new company. It's hard to do all of this, but now you're growing. How many folks do you have working for you?
We have 15 right now,
awesome.
And we're adding more and more. So we'll probably add 2 more this month, and we continue to hire the best people that we can find throughout the country.
And if you're looking for folks, you do have on your website job listings already.
Yes.
Right. Thank you both for being here and trying to make the work world a better place. I really appreciate it. Scott and Jamie, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Spend all night kissing and the bump is right here, then who else is missing? Got a little sidetracked if I'm so wishing I could find the keys to the door, but it's also a metaphor. Things keep locked in the grocery store of my mind. Just to save time, skip right ahead to the last ride.